You're not an imposter. You're just working really hard to be fluent in two different worlds. Sometimes the reason why you might feel like an imposter isn't because you don't belong. It's because you've probably been shape-shifting to try and belong. I mean, I heard shape-shifting hurts. Caterpillars literally turn into piles of goo to be able to transform into butterflies. So you better believe shape-shifting hurts. And you can try to change your speech, change your tone, change the way you dress. You can mute the parts of you that will allow you to adjust. That's not imposter syndrome. That's survival under white professionalism. When you lose sight of who you are and what's important to you, that becomes a moment when you start to feel confused. You start to feel like gross. Well, let's see. W.E.B. Du Bois called it double consciousness. That's seeing yourself through two lenses, right? The lens of who you think you are, but also the lens of other people in places where you might not be so welcome. You're always aware, always split. Gloria Anzaldúa talked about the Coatlicue state, which is a similar concept. She talked about it through metaphors like borders, right? Dividing one part from the other. And she wrote about how the U.S. border with Mexico was like an open wound. I think she said it's an open wound where the third world grates against the first and bleeds. Something like that. She also said borders define what's safe and what's unsafe. So when you think about yourself and your split consciousness and the way that you shapeshift and the way that you come into one space, out of that space and into another one, you can bet your ass that that's the Coatlicue state. It's a state of confusion because you have to bend who you are to fit into both of those spaces. And when you're living at the intersections of race, class, gender, you're living in a borderlands of identity. You're constantly trying to code switch, constantly trying to fit in. Of course, you're feeling overwhelmed. And then you start to doubt, like, am I really supposed to be here? Yes, you are. My personal example of this is from when I was a young professor. I had just started my faculty role. And at a very large college faculty meeting, another professor asked me, so what do you study? And I said, I study trauma and migration to the US from El Salvador. His response was, I don't understand why anyone would study that. Now, in that moment, a lot of things ran through my head. Obviously, I was like, oh my God, an op. What do I say? Do I, get angry? How do I respond to this? And in the end, my response to him was this. It's concerning to me that you don't understand. A lack of understanding can be easily fixed. That's embarrassing. If I were you, I would not admit that I don't understand. Keep that to yourself.